as Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, said, "Publish and be damned."
Hello and welcome to the show, Colourful Conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark. This week we debate the dark thoughts of Bezos. Well, the travails of another billionaire are highlighted by the media, which suggests that President Donald Trump could be engulfed by a scandal involving the owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. Now, it says several key questions remain unanswered about the links between Mr. Trump and the owner of the National Enquirer, David Pecker. Well, there's a name. Yes, and that leads into the fact that the celebrity magazine's parent company was accused of extortion and blackmail by Mr. Bezos. Well, there's some unusual things going on, and we're going to have to tippy-toe, I guess, around some of the things that Mr. Bezos has been thinking. But what is actually going on in his mind? Because it does seem as though there's some salacious pictures that have been put out there, and the relationships with him and many other politicians is under question. Clergyman Pete, this seems very unsavoury. What on earth is going on in Mr. Bezos' mind?
Well, let's start with the basis of this problem, which is that Mr. Bezos was having an affair. He was being unfaithful to his wife, and that's what's at issue here. It's lust expressed in terms of adultery with a woman on his private jet, but I mean the details aren't that important to the morality of it. It's simply that he was being unfaithful, and so what we are seeing here is first his dark and secret thoughts coming to light because photographs were taken of his private parts and hers, and so there was an attempt, it seems, to blackmail him. That's what seems to be going on here.
Yeah. Well, you see, now here again, this ties into another point. He may be guilty of some rather bad decisions, but of course, there's also, let's take Mr. Pecker, who's been keeping his pecker up, and that is definitely about what he's prepared to do. There just seems to be no limits what he's prepared to publish. I know that
luckily, because we do have 2 books available on Amazon.
Quite.
For purchase now. Head over there.
How ironic. Yes. But the thing is that now, when we think about decision makers, those who are in power, whether they're in the media or whether they're in business or whether they're in politics, it does seem that perhaps the public is beginning to see another side to these individuals. What is it that seems to drive these individuals? Is it just for power? Is it for money? Is it for something else? I mean, Mr. Bezos, let's start with him. I mean, we knew that he was already a successful businessman. I mean, he was in finance. He then decided to come out of that and had a commercial opportunity. He decided to set up Amazon. We know what it is today. He's the world's richest man as a result. Mm-hmm. And yet it seems that we're seeing more and more of his strange behavior. Is it that perhaps because he's now the world's largest, well, certainly the world's wealthiest man, that he feels as though he could do anything? And maybe that's actually driving a behaviour. Was that behaviour there at the start?
Yes. I mean, it's difficult to say, isn't it? I mean, it seems from this particular story that there was the opportunity, which did come because he was rich enough to have his private jet, but it could have been another private situation in which he had an affair. And I'm going to assume now, I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's not the only one. I don't know that, of course, but it does seem that he will, if that's the pattern of behaviour that he has, that he will have a casual affair with the wife of another wealthy person, that he would... they would have several affairs. I don't know that, that's just speculation, but it does seem really that it's the behaviour, the lust, the sin that comes first. Desire. I mean, looking at what the Bible has to say, yes, it says do not commit adultery in the 10 Commandments, but the 10th commandment, do not covet your neighbour's wife. Coveting, which is desiring, and in the 10th commandment, desiring things that you should not have, that aren't yours, seems to be the basis of so much other breaking of the Ten Commandments. It seems to be that these desires are what behind it. So I think it was the desire, then the opportunity, that produced this bad behaviour. So we've got that. So you've got that bad behaviour, but what you also need, if you're going to do that sort of thing, is a little bit of, shall we say, wisdom, or at least a little bit of savvy about how the internet works. For a man who has made his millions using an internet-based company, it does seem a bit strange that he was unable to use. I said internet. I guess it's not just. It was actually texts, I think, of his private parts. But that's it's, whether it was over a phone network or over the internet, you would have thought he'd be a bit more savvy about keeping such things private. And yes. I guess that is the issue. That's where it's thought, well, was it a government department who obtained these for the National Enquirer because Trump or the administration set them up to it?
Well, I was going to say, now the dark thoughts continue, don't they? Because you see, now if we think about, what Bezos thinks about Trump or Trump thinks about Bezos, then we bring in...
Yeah. Good thoughts.
Then we bring in Mr. Pecker. Yes. It's a terrible triangle.
Yes,
a troublesome triangle.
Yes, Trump, now, Bezos, and Pecker.
Pecker's own admission, he and President Trump are good friends. In fact, even in the 1990s, Mr. Pecker ran a publishing house that distributed a magazine named Trump Style.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure that you were a subscriber.
Of course, yes. Big fan.
And that actually tended to sort of focus around Mr. Trump's resorts and properties. But in fact, it got even so close that Mr. Pecker even attended Trump's 2005 wedding to Melania. So, yes. They're entwined. So naturally, and again, this is where the strange corridors of powers are filled with these individuals that seem to be at loggerheads with one another. And I just do wonder now, is this something that potentially could expose Trump? Ironically, in some way, let's not forget that Bezos is a very powerful man. Now, whilst I know that Mr. Pecker is very powerful and will certainly align with Trump on this, he's not the only media mogul. And I could see that there may be some salacious news that might now suddenly pop up with Donald Trump. Now, we know in our predictions that, as we predicted, that Donald Trump will be president of the United States, and of course he is. Our prediction, and here's another one, folks, is that he will continue to be president of the United States, because we can't see anything that politically can stop him, unless, and this is the dark thought scenario, which is it that maybe Bezos and friends have something on Trump?
Yes. Well, if Trump did in fact direct an agency, let's say, of the government to release the phone records, such that the National Enquirer was able to get hold of them, then you would say that's the end for Trump. I mean, not only would that end his presidency, he'd end up in jail if that is what he did. So, barring that, yes, we think here Trump is going to be there until 2024. But I think that this is the sort of thing that could bring him down. But actually, there's no evidence of that at all at the moment. Certainly, I would, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I would bet that even if Trump had done this, because as we were saying, there's no love lost between Trump and Bezos, I don't think that he would allow it to be traceable back to him. He seems to be, from what we've seen, pretty good at not allowing that to happen, paying off mistresses, etc. Sometimes using the National Enquirer company to do so.
Yes.
That it's not traceable to him. So I don't think he personally is going to be had for this. I think that the Trump angle makes it more interesting. Anything with Trump in the tags, please note that technical team, it gets more views and listens and clicks. But I don't think that Trump's in trouble here. I also don't think that Bezos is going to be harmed by this, because didn't we all just assume that that's what these guys got up to? Hijinks in the on the high seas. No, that's not right. Hijinks harp in the air. I guess. I just think that this doesn't do him any harm, and he's right when what he says. What Bezos actually said, talking about this, was that he said, if someone in my position can't stand up against this sort of extortion, how many people can? And so his decision, when the National Enquirer put it to him, we've got these pictures, and was demanding payment in their emails, his decision to publish them, I think, was a brave decision. Now, having criticised him for the sin of lust, for the stupidity of having pictures taken in a digital format, I now have to praise him, because that aside, and those are separate issues, once he found himself in that situation, he had the courage to stand up to it. Okay, he didn't need as much courage as someone who would be ruined by it, but it's still courage to allow embarrassing photos to get out there. So I think that kudos to Bezos that he did manage to get this, to take a stand here. It could end in divorce. That's certainly what the National Enquirer is stating. But do we believe anything they say?
Well, the one thing I was going to add here is that there's a political game that's being played. Now, here's a prediction again. Now, we know that Donald Trump is a very powerful man. We know that also, ironically, we've been talking about Bezos, that, with some of his affairs, that Donald Trump has allegedly had affairs as well, and those have been quashed through payments, whether they're legal or not. Now, the question here is that Donald Trump, I guess this is to the man himself, which is, who can stop him when it comes to the next election? Well, I was just thinking, it needs somebody who has a lot of money. Jeff Bezos has a lot of money. What would happen if he were to turn to politics and go, what if he was to run? Because let's be honest, he would have the resources, and I think he'd have the backing. So that would make an interesting scenario, wouldn't it?
It would make an interesting scenario. Of course, being a billionaire doesn't guarantee you the presidency, and in fact, spending $1 billion that route was tried by Hillary Clinton, and that didn't get to the presidency.
No, but I think it was just the fact that it was Hillary Clinton.
Oh, there is that, yes. Also, no, as we're just taking a little circuitous route and talking about the presidential election, I think that we should mention the oft quoted maxim that he who hath no hair shall not be president. That no one, since the advent of television, has been president of the United States who was bald. No, that's not quite true. Has been elected president of the United States who was bald. You could argue that Gerald Ford was bald. It's certainly thinning.
Yes.
But of course he wasn't elected. He just took over.
No.
So,
and George W. Bush started to lose it.
Bezos has many things going in his favour, but he is bald.
Well, this is true, and unfortunately, maybe it's some of those thoughts that are lurking in his head that are causing that problem.
Yes. I mean, why couldn't he just get a wig like Trump does?
Well, as we very well know, and I don't wish to fall foul of any might of Donald Trump here, but as we know, sadly, it is his own loss, sadly scraped and sculptured in the most peculiar fashion.
That's right. Yes.
But anyway, so look, this is something that's coming to the conclusion here, which is that whilst Jeff Bezos is obviously a very smart businessman, perhaps maybe hasn't been that smart when it comes to his personal life. But what I would say is, from a consumer's point of view, I do start to sort of look at Amazon in a different light and sort of think, well, what is going on in the minds of those people who have such great influence, both in terms of technology and retail and commerce? And it is a big point to raise, because what we're seeing is that these individuals are very, very powerful And it's about honour and trust, surely. I mean, something like Donald Trump, I know that he has good intentions with what he's trying to do with the United States, but let's be honest, he hasn't had very good intentions with his relationships on an international front, and certainly his commentary on Twitter is not exactly somebody of an individual who has integrity. This is something, again, just to sort of conclude on this point, but what is actually happening in the minds of our great leaders? What do you think is going on?
Yes, I mean, as I was sort of hinting at the start, I think this darkness, this dark side, is something that is in each of us.
Yes.
There is beneath the civilized service a beast ready to be unleashed. Psychologists have made play with the idea of the mind that's conscious. Being a cover for this undergirding of like a monster who just obeys the lusts and desires of the unconscious mind, sort of pre-civilized. And of course, the Bible and the Christian Bible and other religious texts talk about the idea of sin. Just beneath the surface that needs to be controlled, and
you can buy the Bible on Amazon as well.
You can, yes, it's fully available. So why not? And to have a bit of insight into it, because I think what we're seeing here is not people who are especially evil, but the people whose sins are magnified in terms of who sees them, and magnified in effect because of their wealth and power.
Yes. Well, it is extraordinary, isn't it, listeners, in terms of what's going on and in terms of what are those influences to those individuals when people get to a position of power and what temptations. And I guess it really comes down to one or two things. It is perfectly apparent that I'm never transparent, and my presence is often hidden, sometimes with much history, and always a mystery, and exposed is strictly forbidden. At times I will rise and cause a surprise, manifesting into a monstrous form. I am frequently sinister and hard to administer, and always apart from the norm. Though when God sheds a light, he gets a terrible fright, unveiling weaknesses and all my warts. But with a mind made clear, you'll see that I'm here, for I am your darkest thoughts. Yes, Jeff, we know what's lurking in your mind. Let's hope that we haven't gone too deep. And maybe there's something else that's lurking. Listeners, what do you think? Do you have a problem with Jeff Bezos? Do you have a problem with Donald Trump? Or Mr. Pecker, for that matter? What sort of pictures are you looking at online? Why not log on to markandpete.com and let us know your thoughts. Tell us what you think about what's going on in the minds of leaders today. Well, thanks for joining us today, and join us next time for more colourful conversations with Mark and Pete.